The markets are on the move, so we're going to dive right in here. There are two huge themes that we have to cover today. We're talking about the Bitcoin ETF and AI stocks. A lot of things happen there. I want to take a moment and welcome everyone to today's call, especially a special welcome if you're one of James Altiture's readers. This call will be a deep dive on two huge topics that are shaping up in things that James loves. We're talking Bitcoin, we're talking AI, and we're going to break it all down. Okay, so there's hype in the Bitcoin ETF. So today, what we want to cover is this hype tradable? How do we trade that Bitcoin ETF? What's the move? Secondly, we want to cover AI. AI is blowing up in a good way. CES is happening right now in Vegas. So we want to cover AI stocks and what we like, what's setting up for 2024. We'll dive in there. Plus, you'll see I'm joined by our chief technician, Greg Gunner, as I call him. We want to do a deep dive into charts, and I want to get Greg's input here. Very tradable setups that are happening in the market. Remember, he's a technician, so when he's looking at charts, most of us won't see the stuff that he sees. So he's going to give us a look into that deep dive, and we want to go into that as well. But let's get to it. Gunner, biggest news on the day right now, the Bitcoin ETF. Give us your update. Is it tradable? What are you seeing out there?
Well, I think it is tradable. I think the most important thing that we're seeing right now is that it's moving toward an inevitable approval. Um, the big gossip yesterday was Gary Gensler was tweeting all about crypto. So it's leading people to think that this is really going to happen. It's not just another fake out. And I think Bitcoin is reacting like we would expect it to react in a situation like this, where we are seeing it, at first it kind of stalled out, and that's kind of what Bitcoin does. It tends to break out. It tends to act like it's going to move in one direction and then quickly reverse and move in the other one. But you can see right here that it's made its way through that chop and it has broken out to these new 52-week highs. I believe we're sitting at prices for Bitcoin that we haven't seen since early 2022. And you can see if you this red dotted line here that goes all the way back here, we're right back to that peak, that pivot high from March of 2022. Not a great year for Bitcoin right there, but you can see how it has bottomed out nicely. This nice big bottoming pattern, which seems to be coming to some sort of an apex right here. It might need to consolidate along here around 50K, I would think. But again, I think the path of least resistance is definitely higher, and it feels like we're entering just another cycle in this, I guess, this hype cycle of uh, of Bitcoin right now and of crypto in general. The one thing that I'm looking for right now is to see if we can get some broader participation too from some of the other cryptos. Ethereum's been lagging a little bit. You can see right here that it's not consolidating as beautifully as Bitcoin has been consolidating today. You know, we had the big push higher in cryptos yesterday. Ethereum's giving a lot of that back. It's down about 3% right now. But Bitcoin, nice high and tight consolidation right there, which is really what you want to see in something like this. You don't want to see it give back too much. You want those breakouts to stick. And even if they are down a little bit, you want to see smaller, tighter candles right there. And you want to see it pushing higher. So hopefully, for all the Bitcoin bulls and the people that like to trade those crypto stocks, we do see a nice high and tight consolidation here, and it begin to move toward that big round number of 50K. And again, it feels like price is confirming the news, which is what we'd love to see on something like this. It would be a whole different story if we were seeing all of this news about Bitcoin ETFs coming onto the market and Bitcoin not reacting or reacting lower. I think that would definitely be a negative sign for the news right there. And I see there's a question in chat right now about what we feel like the best way is to trade Bitcoin right now. We're going to get to some of those ideas in a minute
Yep.
because I have some charts that I want to go over. But for right now, I'm just talking about Bitcoin and the ETF reactions, which I think are overall positive.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw, I think on the chart there, one of those red candles was the day, and I've been keeping an eye on this because we've got tons of analysts, including James Altucher, Chris Campbell. They were the ones that were telling me about January 10th a long time ago to say that's the day that we could see this happen. That red candle was when there was the first time that I had seen news that was like the ETF might not get approved. And they were all these like, it was almost like I don't know. They were trying to throw like a wet blanket on the industry because the articles weren't really founded with a ton of great backup. It was just all these headlines out there. So it was almost like a counter narrative. And you can see that red candle disappeared. Like that was a big down day. It was like, uh-oh, this ETF might not get approved. And all of those articles kind of spurred it up. So it is the chart is reacting very well to the news and what's happening, which shows you there's a lot of efficiency in that market, and there's something big happening in Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I think that one day was probably right here, wasn't it? The third,
Yeah.
this big red candle right here, where it was actually it powered higher and it finished the day back above 42. But you can see here it retreated all the way back down to the lower end of its range. That's pretty typical Bitcoin action, though. I mean, you really have to give it a lot of leeway right here, especially on some of these breakout moves. You can see here the very first day the markets were open in January, it looked like it was going to break out and move out of this range right above that 44K range right there. But it retreated right back into it the next day with some of that negative news, and then it ate that up. It ate that dip up, and that's what's important right here. Yes, it's been volatile. It's been more volatile here in this area than it has been back here in November, December. That's going to happen. It's going to go through these periods of expanding and contracting volatility, just like any other asset class will. But the fact that buyers stepped in almost immediately and started pushing it higher, and then we get the big candle yesterday with the 7% move to those new highs, taking out this whole consolidation range right here and the nice high and tight consolidation. It does feel like it does want to follow through to the upside. So short term, I'm definitely bullish on Bitcoin's prospects, and we'll see what kind of demand we get for these ETFs as well. There's all these numbers being thrown around right now, and I think that's sort of contributing to the hype about how much money is waiting in the wings to try to buy into these Bitcoin ETFs. So we'll see just how popular they happen to be and what it does to the price of Bitcoin moving forward.
Yeah, and you've got the institutional buy-in has been happening over the last couple of years because I just came into the office this morning. It's on CNBC. It's Tuesday right now, so it's on the CNBC. They're covering it like it's very, very important news, and it is for the crypto space that has just been building momentum for many years. This is a really, really big, what would be, I don't know, like a watershed moment for the industry. So Gunnar, is there anything else to trade here, or should we move on to, because we want to cover, we've got a bunch of stuff to cover. We can dive into AI stocks, or what do you see that's tradable in Bitcoin?
Well, I want to talk at length about some of the Bitcoin mining charts that we're seeing right now because they're acting a little bit different than Bitcoin. And I think it's important to sort of talk about those because I do like to trade the miners more so than trading the cryptocurrencies. I feel like Bitcoin is something that people are more interested in buying and holding rather than flipping for, shorter term swing trades. Whereas we have crypto miners, which are much easier to get in and out of, and they can deliver some, exponential gains off the moves of Bitcoin, which is nice. So I can dive into some of those, or we can talk AI.
Yeah.
It's up to you. You pick.
Let's
Which
dive
one?
in. So if you've got any comments, write them in right now. If you're on YouTube, write them in below. If you've got comments on this stuff or you've got a take on what Gunnar's talking about. But why don't we just stick with Bitcoin? Let's talk about the Bitcoin miners, some action that you're seeing there. And if we want to break down some of those charts, because we know we've got a bunch to get to with AI and AI stocks. So we'll get to that right after we dive in here and we can keep it topic by topic.
Yeah, definitely. So one of my favorite ones is Mara, and we talk about this one a lot. This is a stock
Yeah.
that I trade really often. People at the trading desk know this stock really well because we trade it, both on the long and the short side right here. And you can see here, it's almost as if Mara telegraphed this hype cycle that we're in with Bitcoin right now because it started moving higher much quicker and much sooner than Bitcoin itself did back in December. You can see here, I'll just flip back and forth. You can see the difference in the charts where Bitcoin topped out on what is that, December 6th, right there, and then
Mhm.
kept on bumping its head on that ceiling. Whereas with Mara, it was moving straight up through this period. This was a small consolidation, and then you can see where it just hockey sticked on everybody and moved higher right there. Yes, this has led to a period of very high volatility for this particular stock right here. So obviously, we have a lot of folks chasing and trying to get into this name, and then we have the big reversal candles right here and some very sloppy consolidation following this big run up. Moves like this are to be expected after you have such a huge parabolic move in a stock. If we just take that away real quick and we just look at the action leading up to that, you can see how we have a stock here that's going almost vertical, huge gaps along the way that haven't been filled, all the way back to the 18th, where it was just gapping higher and moving higher almost every single day. And not just a little bit. We're not talking about like 2-3%. We're talking about, what do we have here? We have an 8% up day. We have a gap, and then we have a 12% up day right there. And then it's up another 7 the day after that. And then, oh, this was a terrible day. It was only up 1% here before it gapped higher and moved up 15% right before Christmas there on the 23rd. Then you're going to run into a little bit of trouble. And this doesn't necessarily mean it's time to get bearish on a stock like this. But what happens here is, after a big straight up move, you're rarely going to see that high and tight consolidation that really helps you set up a great entry point for a new trade. Instead, you're going to see a lot of give back. You're going to see folks get scared, because you have to remember, there's a lot of people that bought into this way up there toward the top. We have people that are buying into this trend right here at $26, $27, $28. And then 3 days later, they get hit with a 16% down day and they get scared out of the position, and it snowballs into more selling. So yes, Mara has righted the ship right here. And you can see after 3 pretty painful down days right there, it did push higher along with Bitcoin pushing higher on January 3rd. But you have to remember, Bitcoin was trying to push new highs here, whereas Mara was just trying to get its act together and try to consolidate along this area. It still is a little volatile, and I would think that we could find a better entry point at some other time with this stock. While Bitcoin is breaking out, I think that I would much rather look for a more high and tight consolidation from Mara instead of it being so sloppy here. And what I mean by that is, if we zoom out and look at this chart and we look at what preceded a lot of big moves in Mara, back here I think is a great example, back in the spring.
Yeah.
Where we had a very similar period, and I can zoom into it. And while the magnitude's not the same, the idea is the same right here. And history rhymes, but it doesn't repeat. But you can kind of tell how the herd behaves on these big moves. You have a big breakout in Mara. It takes it from $8 all the way up to $12, which is a pretty significant move.
Yeah.
And then you can see it did not consolidate in a tight formation. Instead, it gave back a lot of those gains right there. It spooked a lot of people that kind of, prematurely tried to buy this as a breakout move. They got stuck in the red. They ended up selling. And then, instead of jetting back up toward those highs, it needed to sort of blow off some of that steam. We needed more of a consolidation to happen. We need smaller candles to work with right there. We want to see a nice high and tight type of consolidation. And that's exactly what we got. It took a while. You can see here throughout May and then the early part of June, it marked time and it bled off some of the excess momentum there. And then we saw a nice big candle, this big 17% up day right here, which ended up triggering a much bigger move in the stock. And again, it repeats that pattern. You can see this again. Big explosion higher right there. And then you get, instead of the small candles that we have back here, we see these nice tight candles right here, this nice high and tight consolidation right here up against resistance. Instead, you get a lot of give back and a lot of big old candles, indecision from buyers and sellers. They're not too sure what to do here. People get spooked out of their positions, and then it tumbles all the way back down and gives it all back. So while I'm not predicting that that's what's going to happen here, if we fast forward back to present day, you have to realize what kind of conditions that we're in right now. And despite all the good stuff that's happening with Bitcoin right now and Bitcoin consolidating so nicely, I want to see more of these tight candles in something like Mara to sort of give me a better idea that, yes, this is going to consolidate constructively and move higher, as opposed to just giving me more days where I'm going to be stuck with it, being down 5, 10, 15, 20%. Just because we have this big battle going on between buyers and sellers that really hasn't determined what direction it wants to move in just yet. So we'll see what it does right here. It is starting to tighten up a little bit. But again, we're still dealing with all this volatility that's crept in just due to the fact that this was such a monster move back here in December. We took what we could off the table right here. We did have a quick trade, quick triple-digit trade on Samara options back here in December, which was a great trade. And now we can kind of sit back and wait for this thing to set back up again, rather than just taking a stab at it due to all the excitement that's happening around Bitcoin. So to recap that basic idea, yes, I think Bitcoin's going to go higher. I think crypto is showing some nice consolidation. I'd like to see some of the other cryptos sort of like, tail Bitcoin's move right here and get out of the red. But when it comes to crypto miners, especially Mara, one of my favorite trading vehicles right here, I'd like to see a little bit tighter consolidation like we saw in the charts uh, back in the spring of 2023 before we really can set up for another move higher.
Yeah. And a couple things, I forgot to say this, but if you're one of James Altucher's readers or you're watching us on YouTube, this is Greg's bailiwick, right? He's great at trading. He's great at diving deep into charts and seeing what's really causing some of these moves. And I know on Mara Marathon Digital, you guys made some nice gains there in December in part of that uptrend. I've got to say, just for disclosure, I hold Mara. It's a stock that I love to trade in and out of. But panning up to the 30,000 foot view, the big picture here is we didn't have an ETF before. Well, we still don't have an ETF with approval right now. We don't have a spot ETF. So when people want to trade Bitcoin and they don't want to go into a Coinbase account or something, which again, that's the great area for Altucher, Chris Campbell. Those guys know exactly what to do with those small coins and how to trade them. And they've got a fantastic track record. But if a normal trader in a normal brokerage wanted to trade Bitcoin, this is where they do it. And you can see the price action on something like this. It provides so much opportunity. So we might end up seeing that in a whole new sector with these Bitcoin ETFs opening up. So it's something cool to look forward to. And that announcement could come, it could come at any minute, but most people are pointing to it coming tomorrow on January 10th. That'll be huge news for the industry and very, very tradable. Maybe we'll definitely, maybe week over week, Gunner, we'll check in and look at the price action of the ETFs once they start trading and all that stuff, whenever that all happens. But otherwise, we'll keep an eye on the industry because it just gives it all more legitimacy and we kind of go from there. So if anybody has any comments, go ahead, write them in now. Gunnar, do you want anything else to cover here with Marathon Digital, or should we go into the next theme here with some AI stocks sort of blowing up in a good way?
Yeah, let's go into AI, but real quick, someone commented that Riot's chart looks exactly the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
they tend to trade in packs. So I used Mara as an example, but you can see here very similar chart from Riot and some of the other ones too. I'm sure if I put in some of the smaller ones, there's Hut, which is a smaller one. And so the further we go down the cap scale to the smaller ones, the more give back you're going to see on these big, huge parabolic moves like this. Sometimes they post bigger gains and they give back a little bit more. Other times they don't, but that's just my experience with them. I prefer to trade the names I know really
Yeah.
well and
I
stick to
think
my bread and
Clean
butter. And this is
Spark
one of them.
is
Oh yeah,
CLSK. CLSK, I think is one.
yeah, you
Yeah.
got it. That's
Yeah.
another one.
See,
Again,
they're all a
very
little bit
similar.
different, but they're similar.
They're a
Yeah.
little bit different, but very similar. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I like to trade what I know, and I pick kind of the bigger ones, more liquid options, obviously.
Yeah.
So
But those are four. If you want to get in and trade in a regular brokerage account and you want to trade the upside of Bitcoin, and again, you want to follow the timing of someone like Gunner, but those are four tickers right there. You got Mara, Riot, CleanSpark, and Hut. All four of them are Bitcoin traders. Like that's how you can trade stocks, options, all kinds of stuff on this action inside a regular brokerage account. All right, why don't we fast forward or switch gears and get into some AI picks? There's a huge, I mean, obviously CES is going on right now in Vegas. I'm actually going out there tomorrow. So we've got a bunch of moving parts here at Paradigm, but let's get into AI and what we're seeing because we know the narrative is there. From my standpoint, right? I read about it, I write about it, tons of narrative there for AI, and it really is a game changer, what's happening and what's coming down the road. But what are the charts saying?
well, I think if we really want to talk about AI, we should probably talk about the granddaddy of all the AI stocks, which is Nvidia. Um, I have gone on record um, last month saying that I don't think Nvidia is going to repeat its performance from 2023 this year. And so Nvidia decided it was just going to post a massive breakout uh, earlier this week. So I mean that's what we're seeing right here. And keep in mind, and the reason that I'm talking about Nvidia first is because when AI stuff really started taking off 1 year ago this month, if you remember, January 2023 was really where the AI hype officially began in the markets, and everyone started talking about AI stocks. Nvidia sort of sucked all the wind out of the room when it came to what people wanted to trade. At first, there was people going after a lot of the smaller, more speculative AI names, but by the time spring summer rolled around, it was all about Nvidia and how it was going to be dominating the chip production for artificial intelligence. and it never really stopped. Nvidia obviously was one of the big leading stocks, dragging the market higher last year. It had not broken above this 500 level. That's where it was running into trouble all the way back in late August, actually, is when it stopped going up and started consolidating, and even made it all the way down to the bottom of this range right here, near $400 before firming up in November. But again, there was a ton of tech growth, snapback stocks. There were a ton of other tech stocks, a lot of semiconductors that were posting new highs back in November, December. Nvidia still hadn't really done it yet. Um, it was still setting up quite nicely, but it wasn't until late last week where it really started to hook, and you started to see this higher low beginning to form here around 480. And then yesterday, with a really powerful move, you can see down here it was on pretty strong volume, and it opened at its lows and it closed right near its highs in the 520s right there, and it's following through to the upside today. That's a pretty darn clean breakout, about as clean as you're going to see right there at $500. And I'm sure this momentum will probably continue, with some consolidations here and there over the next few weeks, since this is a pretty big consolidation range we're talking about. Like I said, going back here to where it first tagged that $500 mark and couldn't get over it back in late August. That's before all those growth stocks started melting down during the third quarter last year. It held this gap, this earnings gap that it had back in May perfectly, and then just sort of marked time the rest of the way. And now we're finally seeing it break out again. This is a market leader, tons of eyeballs on this, even non-AI eyeballs on this name right here. So I think this means a couple things. Number one, it makes it kind of difficult to be bearish on the overall market when you have market leaders like Nvidia and semiconductors breaking out like we're seeing this week. And number two, I think this could be the spark that says, hey, AI is still incredibly relevant. It wasn't just a flash in the pan mini bubble from early 2023. The hype is going to continue and it's going to expand, and we could see a lot of the more speculative names begin to hook and run as well as NVIDIA breaks out right here. My personal favorite one is C3 AI. We still have yet to see this really take off from this base right here. It had a ton of big runs from 2023, and you're looking at one of them right here. But again, we're talking about a speculative stock. We're talking about a trendy name. A lot of people are going to have their eyeballs on this one just because the ticker is AI. You can laugh at that all you
Yep.
want to, but tickers matter, especially when the herd is trying to grab onto anything they see in any particular industry. And so I think that's where AI's advantage is, not necessarily in its business, but the fact that it has the best ticker out there. And you can see back here when the hype first started, this is a year ago, where my cursor is right now in January 23, where it moved from $11 all the way up to $30, and then had this wild consolidation and rallies and givebacks, and then another massive rally all the way to $50 or almost to $50 back in June. It still has not topped those marks. It looked like it was trying to come out of this consolidation right here back in December. That was never really able to power higher, and it's been sort of flatlining ever since. But it is in a situation right here where I would not be surprised to see it attempt to break out of whatever this consolidation is that it's headed through. Whoops, right here in this area, you can kind of see that mark I just made on here. It's having a little bit of trouble with $30. But the fact that we're not seeing the wild moves that we were seeing back here, it's still pretty tight, and I wouldn't count this one out. And I think that we could see a decent bounce here. Again, this would be a higher low from yesterday's rally where it kind of started getting moving. That's a 5% move right there. That's not too terrible. But yeah, if this expands and if this begins to hold over $30 consistently and then begins to push out over here, I would say that's a breakout out of this bottom right here, and we see it move up to 33 and then try for the 40s sometime during Q1. And again, if we're taking the lead of NVIDIA right there, I would think that there's going to be a lot more positive chatter. And even as I'm talking, NVIDIA is pushing toward its highs of the day right there. So it's not even really consolidating. This is still an active breakout that's happening right now. This is going to be its fourth day higher. It's at its highs of the day. It's up more than 1%. And what's still a flattish tape I assume. Yeah, I mean the Nasdaq hasn't even gone green yet, and we're still seeing Nvidia push higher, and it's dragging the other semiconductors up with it right now. You can see that SMH, this is the semiconductor ETF that I like to look at right here. SMH is still red, and we're going to see a lot of charts like this. Obviously, Nvidia is a very clean breakout, but a lot of these stocks were kicked in the teeth last week, and they're starting to hook back up toward those levels, and make another push right now. And it's not just Nvidia in the semiconductor group right now. We're starting to see some serious moves in some of the also rans that I think could really take the reins this year. This looks like a fresh breakout in super microcomputer. This is my guess as to what could be the next Nvidia coming up for 2024. It had a great year last year, and I don't think enough people are talking about this particular stock, and it's beginning to break out of this base right here and fill this giant gap, this giant earnings gap right here from August. I believe those are the highs right there in the 350s. It's not that far away. I would consider this a decent breakout in this area right here, and then a push toward that 350 level or 360 level. That will only confirm it and get this thing moving higher again. And then the other ones, I mean, we have AMD. Um, that's looking good. It's another kind of hook and run situation where, I mean, you have the big fake out here where everybody got scared last week, and then it's pushing higher. This will be its fourth day higher. It's up near the top of its range, up more than 1%. What's another good one? Uh, let's see here. Let's check on my buddy On. I haven't looked at this one in a while. Okay, so we do have some laggards in the group, but the big ones, the big guys,
Mhm.
AMD, SMCI. I mean, these are moving in the right direction, and these are kind of confirming that, like, yeah, market leaders are leading again. And I think again, this could all fuel, additional hype into the AI sector.
Yeah. And looking at 2024, we're always looking for the best stocks, the best tickers, the best way to play some of these, regardless of if it's a hype cycle or if it's a real cycle of things just breaking out. This gives us a lot of like sort of a roadmap there. Can we go back to the Nvidia chart? And I want to ask you some questions on that one because you even said it. You said in December, you're like, there's no, like this probably won't do what it did last year. And again, it hasn't. We're only 9 days
Right.
into the year anyway. But there will be naysayers that see this chart and they're like, haha, Nvidia is a horrible company. It's even worse today because it's up higher. This is all hype. But you, Gunnar, as a chart wizard, as I would call you, it's not like you can artificially make that move. Those are real buyers that are buying at those highs, right? Like that chart cannot be denied.
Right. I mean, and there's a few things to keep in mind here. First of all, yeah, Nvidia was up 250% in 2023. I don't think it'll repeat that and be up 250% in 2024. I think that's just logical. I mean, it might prove me wrong, and it just might be the
Mhm.
world beater stock of this year as well. But despite the fact that it was up that much last year, it still was fighting to take out those highs from August. So the entire second half of the year, um, I mean, performance was mostly flat at best, from these August highs. So it had plenty of time to rest and reload before another move higher here. Again, me saying that it's not going to go up 250% is not a bearish comment at all.
Mhm.
And the fact that there's all these buyers pushing it up to these new all-time highs right here. I mean, yeah, you can't deny that. So you have a situation where you have a consolidation of practically 6 months in a well-known market-leading stock. You have a very strong, very obvious breakout in this name. And you also have a situation where it's at all time highs. Anybody who owns this stock now is sitting in the green. They are not going to want to sell. There's no reason. No one's getting scared out of this stock right now. In fact, no one was getting scared out of it earlier last week when stocks are going down. It really didn't go down that much. It had a day where it was down like 2.7%. And this chart, and you can see where it's been working its way higher. Um, Patterns within patterns here. You can see if we just draw a simple line right here, you can see that it's been higher. It's been higher low. Excuse me, my chart's getting stuck. There we go. It's been higher lows all the way up since October right there. So while this hasn't been like one of those stocks, one of those tech growth stocks that's been exploding higher and produced a 20, 25% gain in December. It was setting up toward this breakout level, for the past 2.5 months. And that's exactly what we got right here. So yeah, you can't really deny this. And you can point to all kinds of things. You can point to like, oh, it's expensive, or you can dig into the financials, and all that stuff might be true. But for right now, for the immediate future, I don't think there's anything standing in this stock's way. It will eventually need to, you know, back off of these highs a little bit. It'll need to consolidate. It'll need to chew on some of these gains, and I don't know if that's going to mean it's going to need to retreat back to 500 before springboarding off that level again. But the fact remains, we're seeing a breakout and we're seeing the follow through right now in real time. We can't deny what's happening with this stock.
Yeah. If you're on the call right now, go ahead and write in the comments if you have any AI stocks that you like. Again, we might not cover them all, but everyone can kind of see the comments because there's a laundry list of stocks out there that are related. And it's always interesting to see which ones people are excited about because Nvidia, obviously, as Gunnar was saying, it's the big one in the room. Can a $500 stock go to 1,500? I mean, that's going to be a tall order, but we'll see what happens. But it's a good bellwether for the industry and seeing what we can trade. I know James Altucher, Chris Campbell, they've got AI stocks. They've got a whole laundry list there too. So a lot of those. So I see some tickers coming in: ANET, Crowd.
Yeah, I have
And
ADAT right here on my list. I was going to talk about that too. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, there are. It does feel like we're in a period. And again, Matt, you know this. I like to put things into context with what's happening in the market and with like my market roadmap overall. I'm not going to be like jumping on breakouts if the market's looking shaky, because that's the type of time frame where if the averages aren't doing well, and we're in sort of a consolidation, or we're in sort of a pullback mode for the market, then breakouts probably aren't going to stick as much. It felt like we were getting into one of those periods last week. And so far, since Friday afternoon and into Monday, Tuesday, the market's kind of proved us wrong. And we seem to be back into that sort of period where it was like, just kidding. Gave you a little bit of a hard reset after that picture perfect fairy tale November, December melt up that we got. And now it does feel like, the bulls are back in charge. And especially when you look at SMH and you look at NVIDIA, it's very difficult to say like, oh, well, I think the market's going to need to, backfill a little bit. Obviously, I think we are going to need to take a step back at some point, maybe February, maybe later this month, and the market's going to need a 5% pullback. It's going to need to consolidate. It's going to need to rest, and we'll be on one of those kind of risk off periods for the
mhm.
market for several weeks. But for right now, it feels like that was just a gut check, and now it's time to start looking around and looking at the stuff that's spinning higher again. And some of these tickers that folks are mentioning in chat, like ANET broke out. It's on my list of recent breakouts right here. It broke out hard yesterday too. You can see right there. Even I would say this is even a stronger look than NVIDIA. Yes, NVIDIA had a better kind of base built right there, but I mean this stock has been no quit in it. It feels like everybody kind of gets this thing wrong every earnings season, which is interesting to me when you see a chart like this where you zoom out and you can see this very consistent uptrend in a stock that's gone from 140 bucks all the way up to $245 in a matter of 7 8 months. But every time earnings come around, everybody tries to sell this thing off, and it's down 15% on earnings back in May. And then you can see nobody wanted to hold it into earnings. There was 3 big days of selling into earnings at the end of July, and then look what happens. Pow, it moves higher off that. And then the same thing happened in October. It
Wow.
starts rolling over, and then it announces earnings, and it pops higher. So a huge breakout yesterday. And again, the follow through is telling the story here. If we were in a weaker market, a big candle like this might get totally retraced the next day. Remember that Mara chart where we looked at where we had that huge run up, and then we started seeing these big green bars and then big red bars following, and everybody didn't really know what to do. And you had people taking profits immediately when things were breaking out. People are not taking profits immediately when things are breaking out this week. They're riding them and they're following up on them. And you can see here that the breakout's continuing. Yeah, it gave back a little bit today and it tailed off right here down to the 240s, but it's right back up there near the highs right now and starting to push. It's starting to feel again like people are willing to take these breakouts. They're willing to chase a little bit. And it feels like it's almost inevitable that we're going to erase last week's downside. And a lot of these stocks, I mean, of course, some are going to get left behind, but a lot of these leading stocks are going to start pushing us higher again
Yeah.
into the middle part of the month.
If I put you on the spot, and this wouldn't be a force, I don't, you don't have to force a trade, but just say you wanted to trade or someone wanted to trade an AI stock right now. And again, we've got a laundry list of good ones, one listed in the comments, but then also from James and Chris Campbell. But you, Gunner, as a trader, you've got a watch list. You've been keeping track of AI. Is there a stock that you'd say out of all of them, this one kind of looks the best as a trading stock here in early 2024? And again, this is like CES is happening. You've got all this hype. There's going to be real
Right.
world uses of AI. And again, I'm not going to hold you to this one, but like if you had to pick one, like out of all these, like I'm looking at some of the comments, ANET, Crowd, Palantir, LTRN, SSTK, IonQ, AVAV, AWK.
Right.
There's a bunch of them
Well,
there. Now,
let's
again, I got to say
right.
now for disclosures, I own AI, the stock ticker, and I own Palantir. So I got to make sure I do all my
Right.
normal disclosures. But any of these things that you like more than others, if you had to pick one, because I like that idea of saying, this is the top one that we kind of like if we're doing some guesswork.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of them are great stocks, and I'm going to be really picky about my entries in this because my time frame is a lot shorter term than a lot of other people's. I know people on this call probably are more interested in like some of the position trading, the buy and hold stuff, and they say, I buy this stock and ride it higher over the next 6 months. I'm more interested in fine tuning that entry so I can play some long calls on it and potentially make some good money right away. I see something like CRWD, great stock, obviously, and I think that there was a lot of opportunities to trade this, some of which I whiffed on earlier this year. But you can see here, you have something like this with these big gaps higher that's starting to extend. I don't feel like this offers me a really good entry right now.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is more of a buy the dips type of stock right there. That's done really well. And with ANET breaking out and consolidating, I think it's a little bit better chart than this if you're looking for something to buy right now. But again, still pretty well extended. You look at PLTR. Um, Again, this was a bit of a crowded trade. I know we've had a lot of discussions about this, me and you, Matt,
But I will say
recently.
you were absolutely right because I think Sean Ring in our Las Vegas conference, he went and said Palantir. Back then, I was all about Palantir. And I've been Palantir the whole way and I've held it the whole entire time. There was a
Yeah,
point where it was about a month ago, you started saying, I don't like it as much as the other ones. It seems crowded. Give us a little bit of
yeah.
insight onto that because that's how you kind of pick and choose. If you only got a certain amount of money to put into stocks and you want to pick your best one or three, you got to watch out for what Gunner would consider a crowded trade because I didn't know any better. I just held it through the 18 to 15 move.
Yeah, I mean, I know this stock pretty well. It was a really great trading stock on the long side back before the 2022 grinding bear market hit us. But it was definitely like kind of a hedge fund hotel. It's a great story stock, and a lot of people could kind of cling to this with it's an interesting stock. It's a great narrative. There's no reason to be bearish on this longer term. I don't believe. However, the trading action in late November, early December made me think that maybe it needs more time to set back up again. And you can see here, the trends are pretty clear. It's a sloppier chart. You have much bigger candles right here. You don't have that tight consolidation. I'm talking about high and tight consolidation on a lot of these plays right here. You're not seeing that in this stock. When we were talking about it, I believe it was right here. It was attempting to rally, and it wasn't holding on to those gains. You can see here, you have a candle like this one, and I'll zoom in on this so everybody can see it. These candles right here, these red candles with these long upper shadows, obviously you're seeing price test those higher levels at some point during the day and then fail and then move lower into the afternoon. That is not accumulation. That is distribution. That is folks selling into those moves right there. You want to see people buying and holding and pushing prices higher into the afternoon. It's the exact opposite of like the candle we saw yesterday in the video, where it's that big green candle standing tall, opening at the lows, closing at the highs, strong demand all day long. This is demand petering out throughout the day after testing those levels. So it's testing these levels right there, and it's running into sellers at these various prices right here, and it has not righted the ship just yet. Is this stock in trouble right here? Absolutely not. Is it in a very sloppy, wide ranging consolidation pattern? Yes, it is. And therefore, I would try to avoid this thing until it can at least prove that it wants to come out. Um, if we look at something like this and we want to just draw some lines just to start thinking about it this way. And again, none of this is set in stone. This is just me drawing a line and thinking about where it might start to come out of that consolidation. I would like to see it close above 17 and start showing me some more constructive action, some bigger volume moves, some nice fat green candles where it is holding on to those prices, and we're seeing buying into the afternoon, that would give me a nice low risk entry on the long side for something like this. So I would put this on my list as something that I want to watch in the week or two ahead to see how it consolidates here below 17 to see if it can really push us higher. This could be a really great trade because if it starts getting going, then you're going to see a lot of the folks who have made money on the A nets and the CRWDs, and you're going to see them try to rotate into some of these other plays. And this can really take off and give us some of those big days where it's up 10, 11, 12%. And then we'll start to see how it consolidates and how the character of the stock changes from there. But as of right now, I still consider this kind of a sloppy mess. And I'd want to wait for a little bit more confirmation that, yes, the bulls are back in charge. My estimation that it was a crowded trade when we were discussing that's a little bit squishy, and it's really kind of tough to prove those things. But I was seeing a lot of chatter about PLTR. How things are these days. Ever since like the COVID bubble, there's all these message board traders, the Reddit traders, the Wall Street Bets people. It felt like PLTR was back on the radar of the degenerate traders, and they were trying to sort of like force it higher. When I start seeing that type of chatter happening, and I don't see the price action like backing it up, it kind of makes me wonder, like, is this really going to follow through? It has all this hype behind it, but it's not producing to the upside. So I'm kind of sitting back and waiting to see if it really can top those levels and really kind of turn it around, because this is a great trading stock. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about it. And again, I'm not bearish on it longer term. I'm just looking at it in real time and trying to gauge whether or not we're seeing an actual change in trend and coming out of like what's been a very sloppy consolidation. I would say going all the way back to June of last year. It's been a very difficult buy and hold for anybody that's been sort of hanging on to this thing. You've been sort of like getting whipsawed, these wide ranges from like 14 to almost $20. And
Yeah.
that's kind of tough to sit through. So I'm sure a lot of those buy and hold people are kind of queasy in this name right now. We'll see how it shapes up. Again, I really wouldn't get worried about it unless it starts losing that $14 level. It starts plummeting right there. That would tell me that this is a bigger top. But for right now, I think this is just what happens to a stock that has too many eyeballs on it, and that has attracted a lot of attention in the past and sort of waiting to set up for the next best trade.
Yeah. That makes sense. All right. Well, we're about 40 minutes in. I think we had a great conversation on those two topics that we wanted to cover. I think we can cover stuff in subsequent calls, but I will say I'm excited about not only the things that we're seeing in Bitcoin, because the ETF could get approved tomorrow and that could just open the floodgates, but also the narrative and the charts that are backing it up in AI. We've got a lot of really, really good action here, and I'm excited. This is the top trades call. We do these every single Tuesday, and we'll be looking at these sectors. I have a feeling a lot in 2024. So if you were tuning in and you got comments below, if you got any questions, just throw them in the comments, and we'll try and cover this stuff week over week. And if you're on YouTube, make sure, because this is one of the new things that we want to do, having these on YouTube, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. That way you get an update when we go live, and go ahead and give us a like so we can start getting the flywheel going here and getting some more like-minded people on board. Gunnar, thanks a lot for breaking everything down. Two huge sectors, two huge opportunities for 2024. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it too. I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm not a big crypto brainiac, but at the same time, I know a good opportunity when I see one. And what's happening in Bitcoin right now makes me think that, like, A, we could see this breakout extend and move a lot higher, and B, it's going to give more active traders a ton of opportunities to get in and out of quick trades throughout a variety of stuff, whether it's going to be these altcoins taking off again, which, we need to kind of see some confirmation of that happening in my book, or whether we see these crypto miners start to catch and move higher again. I love these plays that are associated with crypto that can produce, like, really big gains fast. It really can, add up in a very short period of time if you're trading these stocks the right way.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your time. As always, thanks for breaking down the charts. And for everyone at home, we'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping in.